This is my review and comparison of the Sigma 18-300 and the Tamron 16-300. This the battle of convenience because these are two incredibly convenient lenses to carry around, having such a huge focal range available to you. Now, I'm generally not a fan of this kind of lens because you make a lot of sacrifices in image sharpness, chromatic aberration, distortion. The list does go on a little bit when you carry around a lens that offers this much. But earlier this year, I did a full review of the Tamron 16-300. That's on my blog and on this channel. And I've been asked by quite a number of people to compare it to the newer Sigma 18-300. Now, I was pleasantly surprised by the Tamron's results. It still has some of those issues, but overall, it performed quite nicely, and I really recognized the convenience of being able to go from a wide landscape shot to zooming into a duck or swan way out on the pond that was just a speck and suddenly is in full detail for you. Now let me give you the bottom line of these two lenses. I usually spoil my reviews right up front and tell you exactly what you need to know, and then you can stick around for the detailed discussion. If you appreciate that, take a moment right now to hit that thumbs up button. That's an easy way to thank me for my time. I have put a lot of time and effort into this review. And if you're interested in hearing more about lenses and my tips and tricks, go ahead and take a moment to hit that subscribe button as well. You can keep on watching even while you subscribe. Now, let me tell you generally who these lenses are for. They're for somebody who's walking around with a kit lens and is happy with the quality, but really wishes that they had a much bigger focal length available to them without having to switch lenses often. These lenses provide about kit quality, image quality to you, but you don't have to switch lenses. These lenses are not for someone who's a pixel peeper, someone who agonizes over the absolute sharpest image quality they can get from the lenses that they're using. And they're also not for the person who really is going to be shooting often in lower light situations. The aperture available to you as you zoom isn't great and is a little worse than your comparable, decently affordable zoom lenses. So what that means basically is in darker situations and as you zoom, you're going to find yourself at apertures that cause your shutter speed to be a little bit on the slow side, and that can be frustrating, or your ISO very high. They both do have image stabilization, but we're going to get into the details review now and tell you which one is better. But I'd like to tell you that up front. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to pick the Tamron to walk out the door with if I have the choice between these two lenses, despite the fact that the Sigma is marginally sharper at most focal lengths. Well, why would I pick a less sharp lens? The difference is sharpness is not huge, and the Tamron has some features that I really like. So let's get into those features now. Let's talk about build quality now and feature set of these two lenses. Very, very similar. They feel similarly made in the hand. They have similar construction and styles. They both have this telescoping zoom feature, and they weigh almost the exact same amount. The Sigma might look like it's metal with this shinier plastic material, but it is in fact plastic, the same as the Tamron. Now, filter sizes, 67 millimeters versus 72 millimeters. Does it really matter? I don't know, but your filters are going to be a little cheaper when buying them for the Tamron. A mark against the Tamron is your little AFM and your image stabilization switches. They're pretty small and smooth, and so there are times where I've been trying to activate those and my finger just slips off. The Sigma's got slightly better switches on there with just a little bit more to grip. That's pretty minor, but it's another point that I want to mention. Now, one thing that is really nice about the Tamron, well, there's a couple really nice things that I'm going to touch on. One is full-time manual focus. So even though that this switch is puny and I just complained about it, you don't ever really have to touch the AF/MF switch. At any point, you can grab the focus ring and focus whether or not it's in MF or AF. On the Sigma side, the focus ring is locked when it's in autofocus, and only the camera is able to focus. This is a really nice feature that the Tamron gives you in this level of lens and this big focal range, because you can get your autofocus, and then especially for macro shots or other detailed shots where maybe you're trying to shoot a bird through some leaves, it's really nice that you've gotten close, but now you can really dial it in with the focus ring on your own. They also give you a nice focus indicator, distance indicator right here at the top. The Sigma's is built into the focus ring, which does the same job, but I just prefer the Tamron's just a little bit. The other big feature that I like on the Tamron, and one of the reasons why I would walk out the door with it more often, is it is weather sealed. Now, they're not going so far as to calling it rain-proof or splash-proof, but it is moisture resistant, and we don't have that at all on the Sigma. And if you're talking about one lens that you're going to carry around and have attached to your camera most of the time, it's nice to have that fact or that feature there, so you worry just a little bit less when it is in damper or maybe even drizzly kind of conditions. Both also offer lens hoods and both offer image stabilization, as I mentioned. It seems very similar. I have to say that it feels like the Tamron's image stabilization is just a little bit better, and I especially saw that in handheld video. Handheld video, shooting with the Tamron lens attached, the 7D Mark II, just a little bit smoother. Not quite as smooth in the Sigma. It's a minor difference, but one that I noticed. Another important point when you're using a lens with this much focal length is how fast does it focus. And this is another place where I saw the Tamron do a little bit better of a job. We walked around Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania for a day. Amazing photographic opportunities there if you've never been. Right now around the holidays they have a Christmas train show set up. It made for really good focus tracking testing. The trains were coming at the same speed towards me over and over again, and I was able to shoot a series of shots. The Tamron, using AI servo and holding that button down so it would track and keep in focus a moving train coming towards me, was able to get more shots in focus than the Sigma. Several times I repeated that, and again, not a huge difference, but consistently more shots in focus than the Sigma. Sigma would miss a couple, maybe out of 5 or 6 shots. The Sigma would miss 1 or 2. The Tamron would get all 6 shots in focus. So that's important. When you're trying to use one lens for all that you do, you want that focus to be a little bit snappier. I also found the Sigma got confused a little bit more easily than the Tamron at times and would hunt for focus more than the Tamron did. And I actually had a focus issue one time. So I always hesitate to bring up single issues that I had, but I've been using the Tamron now for quite a while, and as I said, I had that full review of it when I made it earlier this summer, and I never saw this issue. The Sigma locked up a couple of times in that it would just get stuck in one spot and vibrate in trying to get focus, and I had to disconnect the lens, put it back on, and it worked fine again. So one important point to note though, that Sigma is compatible with their USB dock, so you can dial in some focus, which is a nice feature that the Tamron doesn't offer. So that might be available or that might be worthwhile for you to consider if you really want to tweak that. But honestly, at lenses of this level, there's not a whole lot of tweaking that you can do. Macro capabilities, both of them are identical. It's pretty interesting. Data I found online says close focusing distance is about 15 inches. I've gotten a lot closer. What I found is that autofocusing capabilities start to get a little sketchy closer than 15 inches, meaning it doesn't quite figure out that it can focus. But if you manually focus, and this lens always lets you do that, and also just by moving it in, I found getting it closer to about 6 inches in distance. Both of these lenses do that, but again, the autofocus on the Tamron seemed to work better in that smaller range than the Sigma as well. But as far as magnification levels go, both of them are identical. Now, they do sell an attachment for the Sigma that can increase its magnification. I don't think that's really worth your time. But again, if you wanted to be able to just throw on something that is just a little bit small, a little bit bigger, or carry it around in your lens and gives you that option, then that is an option available to you as well. The last item I want to talk about is image quality. The Sigma is sharper, as I mentioned at the beginning of this review, but it is such a small difference and at the expense of chromatic aberration. You have more chromatic aberration when you're shooting with the Sigma. That is your magenta and purple fringing. And the Tamron generally a little bit softer at that 100% viewing, but not enough to make me say I'm going to pick the Sigma when I have these other features available to me. The other nice bonus of the Tamron is that it does a little bit wider, 16, and it also seems to be a little bit closer. Both of them are marked with 300 millimeters, but the 300 on the Tamron is just a little bit more 300 than on the Sigma. So that was my review of these two lenses. I've got a link to the full review of the Tamron down below if you want to hear more about it. I've got a full link to a supporting blog post with basically what I just told you written up, along with sample images and comparisons of these two that you can look at yourself. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below, but I'll tell you what, the best place to ask your questions and get them answered is over on my Facebook page. There's a link for that right down below too. I worked hard on this review. Easy ways to thank me. Press that thumbs up button, please. Subscribe. You'll benefit from that as well, with lots more tips, tricks, lens reviews coming. And if you're thinking about purchasing one of these lenses, please use the links down below. I love B&H. They make many of my reviews possible, so use those links for your shopping. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.